Hi, thank you for joining us today to talk about the STEM OPT eligibility and application process. This video is presented by the International Students and Scholars Center at Arizona State University. A disclaimer, the content from today's presentation only reflects the current advisement of the International Students and Scholars Center. Immigration is a dynamic thing and updates can happen, so we really recommend that you visit our website directly for current announcements and updates as needed. So our agenda today, we're going to cover the general 24-month STEM extension. We're going to talk through the eligibility, eligible employers, the application process, if you receive a notice from USCIS, which is the United States Citizen and Immigration Services, and they are the government agency that's going to handle your actual application for STEM OPT. And then we're going to go over a few really common questions that we see. So the 24-month STEM OPT extension is something that the government offers to students who have completed a degree program. It would have either been generally a bachelor's, master's, or doctoral program in an eligible STEM field. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So you've earned a degree in a major that the government has deemed quote unquote STEM eligible. And because of that, after you complete a period of the initial 12 months of post-degree completion optional practical training, these students are able to apply for an additional 24 months. So this allows international students to gain more off-campus work experience. And if you receive this extension, you can be on optional practical training for a total of 3 years. So again, to be eligible, you've got to have that STEM eligible degree. That's really the basis of the extension is the specificity for your degree. So not every student is going to be eligible for the STEM extension because of that. We'd really recommend that you check our web page on STEM OPT because we have a list actually of ASU STEM designated degree programs. So look at the eligibility section of our web page. There's a lot of majors at ASU and new programs and existing programs are often being restructured. So it's worth checking out and seeing if you're on that or talking to your academic department if you have questions. For application timing, you have to apply for STEM OPT before your post OPT period actually ends. And you can do the STEM OPT extension once per educational level, a total of twice in your lifetime, and you can use a prior degree to apply actually. So when you're applying for post OPT, you have to have completed a degree program and at the end of each higher degree level, you can apply for post OPT. At the end of post OPT, if eligible, you can apply for the STEM OPT extension. And that's, you could do twice in your lifetime. So like you could do it at a bachelor's and a master's level, but then at the doctorate level, you would not be eligible if you'd already done the STEM OPT extension twice. And you get an additional 60 days of unemployment on STEM OPT if approved. So the STEM OPT extension has stricter job requirements than post OPT does. So to apply for the STEM OPT extension, you're actually going to need to already have a STEM eligible employer lined up. So that's a big difference than post OPT, which was a general work authorization you were applying for. This one is going to require you to apply with a specific employer. You need to be full-time employed during this, and the government considers that 20 plus hours per week. Your company has to be enrolled in the E-Verify program, and you cannot do volunteer or unpaid positions on STEM OPT. There is a requirement that employment be compensated and that you be compensated comparably to what a US worker would be paid for the same work. So that exact payment amount can vary a lot. Industry standards vary a lot, and so do potentially the payment labor laws for what state you're working in. So there's not a minimum salary that the ISSC is going to be able to tell to you. That's really something you're going to need to talk to your employer about for deciding what is the appropriate wage that you would need to be paid for the work on STEM OPT. So a little bit more on eligible employers. It needs to be a legitimate organization capable of signing the Form I-983, which we'll talk about in a sec, but that is the training plan between you and your employer. They need to actually be able to provide formal training and oversight. You'll sometimes hear this referred to as a bona fide employer-employee relationship. And that essentially is just getting at the company that says they're employing you needs to be the actual one monitoring, supervising, and following up with you. So this does allow for a participation in a startup or small business as long as they're meeting the other requirements. But that requirement for a bona fide employer-employee relationship is going to prohibit self-employment because you cannot train yourself. So that also we wouldn't recommend working under 1099 on the STEM OPT extension. 1099 is a tax designation. And the designation itself is saying that you are an independent contractor. So it can be really hard to justify and prove that your work is meeting the requirements for the STEM OPT employer eligibility if by the tax designation structure, you're saying that you are self-employed. So the application process. Some deadlines to consider are you've got to get a STEM OPT I-20 before you can submit the I-765 for STEM OPT with USCIS. You've got to receive that STEM OPT I-20 from the ISSC, and once we issue it, you need to apply within 60 days. You also need to apply no earlier than 90 days before your post-OPT period ends, but you've got to do it within that 90 days. And then we really would recommend avoid applying right before your post-OPT period ends. USCIS may be functioning in a different time zone than wherever you are located within the US. So it's best to, at bare minimum, apply the day before because you don't want to fall in a situation where, because of time zone differences, where you're applying on the last day of your post-OPT period. But the time you submit your application, your receipt notice from USCIS shows the next day because they're in a different time zone. So really, to be safe, minimum day before, but the sooner the better. And it really is a strict, they've got to get that application before your post-OPT end date on your EAD card. So let's think about the timeline a little more in line with getting that I-20. Because you can apply up to 90 days before your post-OPT end date with USCIS, the ISSC is going to let you submit your STEM OPT I-20E form 97 days before your post-OPT end date. And that's because the ISSC has a 7 business day processing timeline. And to align with USCIS's rules, we're not going to actually issue I-20s until that 90th day before your post-OPT end date on your EAD card. So to account for that, earliest you're going to be requesting for a STEM OPT I-20, 97 days. Earliest issuance date, 90 days before your post-OPT end date. And then you've got to apply before the actual end date itself. And your STEM OPT period is going to begin technically the day after your post-OPT end date. So you're going to submit your request for STEM OPT I-20 through your My ISSC eForm portal. You can find the eForm portal by going onto the ASU ISSC website, and anywhere in the top right corner, you'll see a link for the eForm portal. And then when you access it on the left-hand side, you're going to see a section called F1 STEM OPT if you do have a STEM eligible major. And there is going to be an option to submit a STEM OPT extension I-20 request. So that's the one that is applicable to you. These are the required documents that you're going to need to get a STEM OPT I-20. You're going to need to submit a copy of the biographical page of your passport, your most recent I-94, which is different than your travel history. It's the same government webpage you're pulling it from, but make sure you select most recent I-94. You also need to pay a $300 STEM OPT case management payment to ASU. You can find the link to do this on the ASU ISSC STEM OPT webpage. And then you need to have made sure you've provided a copy of your current post-OPT EAD card at your current degree program level. And then the last big one is you've got to complete that Form I-983 training plan between you and your employer. So this is what the very beginning of an I-983 training plan looks like. In total, it's a 5-page document. This is a government form, so it's not specific to ASU students. It's all students in F1 applying for STEM OPT. This is what the current form looks like, and the expiration date is May 31st, 2025. It is the most recent form that they have released, so it's still accurate to be using this one. If any updates come out, though, when you're looking at this form, you can either find it linked on the ASU ISSC STEM OPT webpage, or if you just search it online, Department of Homeland Security, I-983 training plan. You can also check what the most recent release has been to see if it has been updated since this presentation was recorded. So you and your employer are going to have to work to complete the Form I-983 training plan together, and you've got to complete it to actually receive a STEM OPT I-20 and any generally, most employment updates you may need to do, if approved for the STEM OPT extension, will also require updated I-983. So this is form is in a lot of ways the basis of how you show what employment you're doing when reporting to the ISSC. So you are subject to the terms that are listed on this Form I-983. So we really recommend you and your employer actually read through it together. A reminder again, your start date of employment is going to be the day you actually begin the 24-month STEM OPT extension, which can be definitely confusing because it likely may not line up with when you actually began working for the company that you plan to apply for the STEM OPT extension with. But the form does want the start date with the employer on your STEM OPT extension, not when you started with them on post OPT. And then you're only actually submitting this form to the ISSC. The government does have the right to request a copy of the Form I-983 that has been submitted to the ISSC, but at least as part of the standard initial application, you're only going to be giving it to the ISSC. You're not actually going to include the I-983 when you submit the I-765 petition for STEM OPT to the government. So to fill it out, you're going to need to fill out pages 1 through 4. So page 1 goes over your basic student information. Section 2 is you as the student are going to sign off agreeing to the form's requirements it's listed. On pages 2 through 4, that's something you and your employer are going to need to work together to fill out. Section 3 is going to be the company information. Section 4 is a employer signature. Section 5 is the written out training plan where you're going to go over, what's your role, what are your objectives, how is your employer measuring those and monitoring you. Section 6 is another employer signature, and then page 5 should be left blank at this point in the application because you're only going to use page 5 later for reporting purposes on STEM OPT, but to report this new employer and receive the I-20, just completing pages 1 through 4. A reminder, the I-983 as a government form has signature requirements, so we cannot accept electronic typed signatures. It does need to be either a wet ink signature or a digital signature, where like the DocuSign ones, where there's like a time and date stamp marked by whatever, system you are using to complete it, showing that you yourself and your employer themselves actually signed off on this. We do have a self-guided Canvas course on the I-983. We really recommend that you enroll in this and go through it. The I-983 is a long form and there's a lot of different detailed information you are compiling. So to avoid delays in receiving your I-20, it's really best to look at this first. Otherwise, it's really common to receive follow-up on the I-983 before you can actually receive your STEM OPT I-20. This other link is to a government overview on how the Form I-983 should be reviewed and filled out that you can also look at if you'd like to look at a direct government webpage or share a direct government webpage with your employer. So once you get your STEM OPT I-20, you're going to be ready to actually submit your materials to USCIS. We would recommend filing online. There is an option to file a paper application, but the online application is definitely recommended if at all possible. You can do this by creating a USCIS account or signing in. You likely already have a USCIS account if you filed an online application for post-OPT, so you can use that same application account with USCIS. A few reminders that if you look on the USCIS online account and you start a petition for the I-765, the system will automatically save your answers so you can work at your own pace. It's not something you need to log on and finish and pay and submit to USCIS within one sitting. Draft forms are saved for 30 days from the last time you worked on your form. So you do have time and can do it over a few different time periods if that is easier for you. So to fill out the I-765 application, remember that you can't make corrections after you submit your payment and your application is sent to USCIS. So you really want to make sure to review and have it all ready to go before you do that. The online form is going to show you alert warnings in red if they think you have provided incorrect information and you've made an error, or it's going to show a green check mark if everything it looks filled out correctly and you've provided the information requested. It's up to you how you want to pay the fee. It is an online application, so normal online payment methods are accepted. But again, remember the form will submit upon the payment submission, and then you will receive a receipt notice that confirms the government received it and when they did. Some required documents to actually submit with USCIS online. It is, as we've been talking about, the Form I-765, specifically for F1 students applying for STEM OPT. The Form I-765 can be used for multiple types of requests to the government, so make sure you're doing for STEM OPT. You will need to provide a copy of the STEM OPT Extension I-20 that you received from the ISSC. Make sure you have printed your I-20 and signed it, and then are uploading it again, that signed copy by you and your designated school official. You're going to need to provide evidence that you have completed this STEM OPT eligible degree. Generally, students provide diplomas as evidence of that. A copy of your passport, a copy of your I-94 arrival record, a copy of your post-OPT EAD card at your current degree level program that you did post-OPT on, and then 2 passport style photos. We have a different self-guided Canvas course that is specifically for submitting the I-765 with USCIS, so please feel free to review in that, and it's going to walk through step by step the different questions you're being asked and what information you should be using to answer them. If you've received your I-20 but think you're going to need more time to send in your application, please consider the following. Remember that USCIS needs to receive your application within 60 days of when that STEM OPT I-20 was issued to you. If you think you're not going to be able to apply within that period, then please request a new I-20 from the ISSC by emailing us at issc.stemopt@asu.edu. Please also note you can only request this if you've not actually submitted your materials to USCIS. If you've submitted your I-765 to USCIS, at that point it is pending the review and we cannot issue you a new STEM OPT I-20. Once you receive your decision notice from USCIS, there's a few things you might see. If you're approved, that's amazing, and then you should be receiving your EAD card in the mail about 2 weeks after you get your approval notice from the government. Once you get your EAD card, we'd ask that you upload a copy to the ISSC for review so we can double check and make sure everything looks correct. If you are denied or you receive a request for evidence from the government or any other notice from them, we'd ask that you upload a scanned copy of that notice to us through the post-OPT/STEM USCIS notice upload e-form. These notices are really contextually specific and are unique to a student situation. So it's hard to provide general guidance on them until we're actually able to review them. So it really is come talk to us if you receive these so we can discuss what your options are and how you should be responding. Please remember that again, your STEM OPT extension will begin the day after your post OPT period ends and unemployment time. On post OPT, you receive 90 days of unemployment. If approved for STEM OPT, you'll receive an additional 60 days for a total of 150 days throughout post OPT and STEM OPT. If you haven't used any of your unemployment time or any that you haven't used on post OPT, it will carry through, so potentially you can be using more than 60 days of unemployment during that STEM OPT period if you have unused days left from post OPT. Remember processing times. For the ISSC, it's going to be up to 7 business days to process your STEM OPT extension request for an I-20. You've got to have that I-20 to apply with the government. With USCIS, their average processing times are often around 90 to 120 days. Keep in mind, if USCIS receives your STEM OPT application before the end date on your post OPT EAD card, then you can continue working for up to 180 days beyond your end date on your post OPT EAD card while the application is still pending with USCIS or until you get a final decision notice. Some common questions. What happens if there's an error in my EAD card? So that's really going to depend on what the kind of error is. We would recommend checking on our webpage for some of the common errors seen because the way to fix the error depends on what kind of error it is. What happens if I get denied or receive a request for evidence? We would ask that you upload a copy of that notice to the ISSC so we can review and give advice based on your specific circumstance. Can I change jobs on STEM OPT? The answer is yes, but you've got to report that new job to the ISSC within 10 days through the STEM OPT Employment Update e-form. If you are ending employment, you'll need to complete the final evaluation on the bottom half of page 5 of the I-983 with your employer you're ending with. And to report new employment, you'll complete pages 1 through 4 of the I-983 with the new employer. The new job still needs to meet all the employment requirements for STEM OPT. And additionally, while you can change jobs on STEM OPT, we would recommend avoiding changing jobs while your application is pending with USCIS if possible to avoid delays or confusion. You can still change employers while it's pending. It just is less recommended if you can avoid it. What happens if you change your immigration status? So you need to report this to the ISSC within 10 days of the start date of your new status. You're going to do that by submitting an F1 demographic update e-form so we can ensure your F1 SEVIS record is properly closed out. And if you were approved for STEM OPT, or if you have worked at all on the STEM OPT period, then you do have to submit the final evaluation on the bottom half of page 5 to report when you ended employment on F1 STEM OPT. And that would be the day before your new immigration status actually took effect, would be that last day you were on F1 STEM OPT. What happens if you lose your EAD card? You are going to have to submit a new I-765 application to US with all supporting documents and pay the fee again if you need to request an EAD card after losing it. You're going to need to be physically present in the United States while applying for a replacement card. This is a separate situation though than if you just have not received your EAD card in the mail potentially. You also have the option to submit online case inquiries to the government, and there is a specific one for non-delivery of card. And you can find those case inquiry requests at this hyperlink. That is all we have for today. Please remember you can definitely join us for a live event in the future. We hold different presentations on a variety of topics, both immigration related and not. So please check out what is upcoming at issc.asu.edu/events. You can also contact us. Do you have specific questions about your circumstances and your timing for submitting a STEM OPT application? Please feel free to send a general email to us at issc.asu.edu. You can call us at 480-727-4776, or you can come to drop-in advising. We have in-person advising on Monday and Thursday afternoons from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Tempe campus in the Student Services Building, or you can also join virtually on Zoom at these other times listed here. If you want to find more information on that, you can view or contact us there as well. You can also look at the ISSC YouTube channel. We would appreciate if you would like and subscribe for recordings of present and future programs. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Thank you.